We're here to listen to the Director of Finance, Keely Bosler, who was appointed first by Jerry Brown to be Director of Finance and Cabinet Secretary prior to that, and has been appointed by Gavin Newsom to be Director of Finance. Keely Martin Bosler. Thank you.
It's a pleasure to be here and to present the governor's 2020-21 budget. So we're already into the next decade. Because of my perspective, I've been working on budgets for about 20 years now. I can safely say that this is a very good budget. We've had many years of fiscal instability, and we are now into the 11th year of the economic recovery of the U.S. and all of our economic vitals continue to be very strong. Unemployment was at a record low last year, and we do continue to see growth over the forecast period. However, there is risks on the horizon, and our forecast does show for some slowing growth. We do estimate that revenues were up about $5.8 billion over the 3-year period, which is very good. But the overall surplus is about $5.6 billion, but that's significantly less than it was last year. I would say that the main thing driving that is that our revenue estimators back at the Department of Finance have gotten a better handle on the impacts of the federal tax changes and just how those were going to impact the state of California's revenues. So we, though, continue to build a strong foundation to withstand whatever comes our way in the future. There are a lot of risks on the horizon. As I said, we do not assume any kind of recession in our budget scenario, but we do see just over the last 2 weeks changes in the geopolitical environment that could provide more uncertainty to revenues in the future. The other thing that we're watching very closely at the Department of Finance is changes in federal policy that may have a significant impact on the state's budget as well. And that's really in the area of healthcare. For those of you here in the healthcare world, you all know how closely and interrelated our state's financing of the healthcare system is with the federal government. So there are several recently proposed rules that we're watching closely that could have a very big impact. And so that's another thing that is in the top of mind as we built this budget this year. But it is absolutely built on a strong foundation. We have the highest level of reserves. This chart up here shows the rainy day fund, which is now at $18 billion. That's $2 billion higher than last year, and it will grow over the forecast period to be over $19 billion. This year alone, we have $18 billion in the rainy day fund, and we have over $21 billion, or about $21 billion in reserves if you count all of the reserve funds. Also built on last year we paid off all of the state's budgetary debts and deferrals, some of which had been on the books for over a decade. So that's a really important component of our overall strategy and building resilience for whatever comes our way. The other aspect that we were able to do last year was dedicate $6 billion to provide supplemental payments to the pension funds to reduce our unfunded liabilities. And over the next 4 years, as we continue to make constitutionally required Prop 2 debt payments, we will continue to dedicate all of that money to paying the state's unfunded retirement liabilities, including an additional $1.1 billion that we hadn't planned on in 23-24. So really good progress in continuing to reduce our long-term liabilities. The $6 billion we sent last year to PERS and STIRS is going to actually result in over nearly $15 billion in savings over a 30-year period. So those are really good investments that we did now that will reduce costs going forward. But now I got to get to the bad news, because that's what we do at finance. We're always looking at what's on the horizon, what will we have to deal with. So we did do a recession scenario, which we also did last year. And this is just to get people reminding that things are good right now, revenues are good, but they aren't always going to be like this. And so even a recession that's slightly larger than the dot-com bust, but a shorter a duration than the Great Recession, could lead to a $70 billion decline in revenues over a 3-year period, which is more typical. We model it this way because it's more typical of how the state experiences the revenue decline. So that's a big problem. That's a big issue. We estimate about a $40 billion budget problem because of the way our Proposition 98 guarantee works. But there is definitely, no resting on our laurels. We have to continue to be very laser focused on budget resiliency and on being able to handle any kind of recession or slowdown that comes our way. Prop 98, we are at the highest funding level ever. We're at $84 billion. That's very good news. It's $7,200 higher, all total funds. From the low point of 2011-12. But higher education, really such an important part of our state budget, really a driver of innovation and job creation. We have major investments in both UC and CSU, building off really landmark budgets for both of those segments last year. When CSU received a 9.6% increase and UC a 7.2% increase. And actually over the past decade I've been around, I can account to that most years they were going to be getting 3 or 4%. So these were very big augmentations last year. I think they've done a lot of really innovative things with them. And this budget adds another 5% base growth to each of those segments. With a real focus on continuing to improve graduation rates. When we do that, we not only save money and are able to bring more students into the universities, but we save money for households who are paying for their students to go through college as well. So really helps to reduce overall costs of higher education. We're also asking both of the UC and CSU to stay very focused on closing achievement gaps for students, especially those that are first time in their family to attend college. We're not seeing the same graduation rates with those students, and we know that those students are better poised for success with different supports. So we're having them focus on that. And then we're also increasing opportunities in some of our more underserved regions with a major investment in the UC Riverside School of Medicine and another sizable investment in the UC San Francisco Fresno branch School of Medicine that's in partnership with UC Merced. And then also a major augmentation to the apprenticeship programs run by the community colleges, which are also developing new apprenticeships that meet the needs of the workforce. And then finally, the last thing is another $10 million investment in innovative online programs through the extension services at both UC and CSU to go after those individuals in our workforce that have some college but have not graduated. And so trying to get them their degree so they can have the skills that they need to move ahead in their careers. So continuing to move on to the opportunity area, the governor has been really focused on, we have a chapter this year called Jobs in the Economy. So really trying to focus on how we build a stronger and more inclusive economy here in California. We continue to fund the major expansion to the Earned Income Tax Credit that we did last year. And then the budget does fund the minimum wage increase to $13 an hour as we continue to make our way towards $15. The budget does support a new tax cut for small businesses. It's the minimum franchise tax. It's an $800 tax in the first year, and the budget proposes to eliminate that in the first year. For all types of business. Currently, corporations get that benefit, but not other types of partnerships and limited liability corporations. And so we would propose to extend that for $100 million. We have released the state's 5-year infrastructure plan. It is a chapter within the budget, and so please make sure to note that. But it is, we have $53.3 billion worth of investments in infrastructure over the next 5 years. The vast majority of that is transportation, $40.6 billion in transportation investments over that same time period. Then finally, we have some innovative proposal in some of the investments in inland California. I already mentioned the two medical schools in the Central Valley and the Inland Empire, but we also have about $50 million for an economic development plan that the Fresno area has undertaken, including $33 million for an innovative partnership between higher education and industry, really focused on developing more high-wage, value-added jobs in that Fresno region. And then also $17 million for a K-16 collaborative, in recognition that in order to get those high-skilled workers, we have to really start with the foundation, including partnerships all the way from elementary, high school, and into both the community college system and also the public and not-for-profit colleges in the region, to get the types of graduates that region needs right now, frankly, and healthcare and teaching and the ag sector as well.